Jenny Turner with Lovejoy Real Estate. Today we're here to talk to Brian Haveman of Summit Mortgage and Landmark Property Management.
My name is Brian Haveman. I'm with Summit Mortgage, NMLS 4988, and also Landmark Property Management.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming today.
Yeah, thanks.
I wanted to talk a little bit about lots of things. Investment property, what you're seeing on the mortgage side of the investment property, then also what you're seeing as a property manager and I know a property owner. So tell us a little bit about your experience first. Like did you start with investment property? Did you start with mortgage? What was that evolution?
Yeah, so started in mortgage, a long time ago, mid-90s.
Makes us feel old, right? I know,
Pretty close to when you started in real estate as well. And being a position that was a commission-only position, I was looking for a steady income stream. And so naturally, real estate felt like a perfect fit to invest. So I've been investing for about 20 years in real estate all over Portland. And while it's had its ups and downs, overall it's been a good experience for me. Right.
Probably what you've bought over the years have changed, but as an investor today, do you have a specific, a lot of times when I'm talking to investor buyers, they're like, what should I buy? What should I invest in? I'm like, I don't know. What's your strategy? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you want cash flow or do you want appreciation? Or what do you do? So do you kind of find for you and with the other investors that you talk to, do people have a buy box that works for them and maybe your buy box is different than my buy box?
Everybody's different, and as you know, with investment property, same as other real estate, it's location, location, location. All about the location. I personally am a big fan of single level. If you can find it. As you know, it's hard to find. Very hard to find these days. And then look for a property with a value add. Meaning, is it on a large lot? Could you add a tough shed in the back and rent that separate? Or attract more renters? Or is there an unfinished basement? Room for an RV pad? Because tenants, they come in all different, from all different backgrounds, all different experiences. And if you have, for your property, if you can set that apart somehow from other rentals, whether it be storage, fenced backyard, RV pad, what have you, you'll get a little bit more in rent and you'll retain people longer.
I was going to say, and that's part of it, right, is if they stay there longer, that also makes a bigger difference.
Absolutely. So my mantra has always been, none of my properties are right at market rent, typically.
They tend to be a little under, I assume.
A little bit under. And I screen very, very carefully all my tenants. And I have a personal relationship with my tenants, which I think is important because investment property ownership, you can hire a management company to take care of it for you. Or you can manage it yourself, of course. But it's a very personal business. Because you're dealing with somebody's home. You're dealing with where somebody lives. And it requires a little extra care and a little extra thought. For example, the thing I like about single level is I've had tenants with mobility challenges. I've got one tenant who's 86, another who's 93. And guess what? If they have a light bulb that burns out, I come by and change it. Do I have to do that? No. But it's that extra touch. They pay the rent on time. They're super clean.
They're probably not having raging parties.
They're not having raging parties. They're sweethearts. I get Christmas cards. And
that's why single family houses are good investments as far as real estate is the same reason, right? It's broadening that buyer pool and therefore it also broadens your rental pool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, there's been a lot of hubbub about the city of Portland, about this mass exodus. I completely disagree. I think you want to run towards regulation instead of away from it. And I think a lot of people, the city of Portland laws that got put into place really aren't that bad. It's pretty plain English. You got to go through a few more hoops, a few more steps. But there are, I think today, quite a few less rentals in the city of Portland.
I definitely feel like some of the investors who were mom and pop investors, only had one or two, have decided that maybe it's not worth the hassle. And I also think it's interesting because I always feel like for us personally, it's 1031, 1031, 1031 die. But I'm having a lot of my investors being like, nah, I'm out, Jenny. I'm just happy paying the taxes. And I'm kind of surprised about that because I'm like, I would never do that. Or I feel like I would never do that. But I have one right now in Northeast Portland and we just can't figure out what we want to buy. We don't want to feel pressured. We're just going to pay the taxes.
Yeah, and so everybody's situation's different. I think in general, what I talk to with my clients about, they're looking at investment properties, is it's a long-term investment. It's not a flip.
Yep.
You have to be in it for the long haul.
Yep.
Because over time is your friend. Your loan balance will go down. Over time, the property will go up.
Yep.
Your rents will go up,
Yep.
et cetera. And there are different strategies too. Like we've got loan programs where you can take a chunk of your IRA. I'm not a financial planner, by the way, but you can take a chunk of your IRA into self-directed.
Right.
And there's actually loan programs where we lend to the IRA. And
so the IRA doesn't have to have all the money. The IRA could get a loan.
The IRA can use leverage. And so, again, not for everybody, but if you are getting close to retirement, you're sick of the stock markets up and down, and you want to get a steady cash flow, look for a nice single-family home, good area, buy it within your IRA. If you don't want to manage it, have somebody else manage it.
I think, can you manage it yourself if it's in your IRA? I think maybe you have to be arm's length on that.
I think you're right.
I think you're not allowed to self-manage it.
Yeah.
But self-managing is hard. We've always self-managed.
It's a lot of work.
And we're right, we have 6 rental properties, 1 short-term, so that's kind of off the, we manage that, but that's a different animal.
Hood River?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have 5 in Portland Metro, although we just bought one in Oklahoma.
I saw that. A new one.
A brand new construction, $216,000. And that really wasn't, that wasn't my investor hat being on. That was my family hat being on. Yep. We bought it for a family member. But I did, I'm like, gosh, I wish I could spend 1 level, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, new construction for $216,000.
Two-car garage.
2-car garage.
Nice backyard.
I mean, it's interesting. But we're self-managing, and we're right there to not be right. And we've had good tenants and we've had good things. And in December, we decided we weren't going to self-manage anymore. And then we just haven't pulled the trigger and we're still self-managing, right?
Yeah.
And so if somebody is thinking about buying a rental property, they haven't owned investment property before.
Yeah.
Do you think can they self-manage? Is that okay in Portland?
Yeah, I think the Oregon landlord-tenant law is pretty plain and simple for the most part. So if you are going to self-manage, read through Oregon landlord-tenant law. There's a lot of great associations.
Yep.
I'm part of Multifamily Northwest.
That's what we're part of too, and that's the forms I use and all of that part of it.
Yep. A lot of them do education, and then you can buy packets of forms that are all the latest and greatest laws are included, all that stuff. So don't create your own form or look on the internet. Get one through an association.
How did you know that's what I did when I first started out? I totally created my own lease.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Yeah, completely. That was a long time ago.
I see it quite a bit, but you're gonna, if you have, for instance, if you have a property built before 1978, there's a lead-based paint disclosure and a pamphlet, and you want to make sure it's not just the rental agreement, but there are a lot of addenda that go along with it that are very important to protect you. And at the end of the day, it's a contract between owner and tenant, and you want to make sure that contract is complete and thorough, and that the tenant understands all the provisions.
One of the things that I get asked a lot is, how do I get the tenant out? And that's some of the changes to the rules, right?
Yeah.
So if I have a rental property that I want to vacate because I want to sell it, or I want to vacate because, can I do that? Or do these rules really change that and now I can't do it, or I have to pay money, or?
Yeah, again, it depends on the municipality. The other thing that I would recommend is, they got rid of no-cause evictions, as you know, which was a little bit of a blow to the investor community. But there are still provisions where you can move somebody out.
If you remodel, if somebody's moving into it.
If there's a major remodel and things like that.
Yeah.
What I have, and I'd recommend for anybody who's self-managing, is I've got an attorney on retainer, and while he is $300 an hour, he only charges in 15-minute increments.
Oh, that's nice. So you can ask the questions.
Exactly.
Yep.
So if I run up to a situation, because not all situations are the same, you run into weird stuff, emotional assistance animals that are, ponies or.
I mean, now I just say yes to pets, because if I don't say yes to your pet, you can just call it an emotional service animal for $99 online, and you can now have your turtle or whatever the heck it is. I haven't had a pony yet. That doesn't sound very good to me.
But it's crazy, and so I think having a landlord-tenant attorney on retainer, if you will, and when I call them up, I don't talk about the weather.
Right.
I'm like,
you're specific and you're
like,
precise.
hey, Chris, yeah, I've got here's the deal, boom, boom, boom. And a lot of times it might cost me $60 for the question, but it's well worth every penny.
Right, that protection, right, that you go through.
Yep.
One of the things that I'm hearing anecdotally, but I also kind of feel it as a landlord, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, is I feel like now there's more pressure for me to raise my rents more often. Because I can't catch up. I'm limited by cost of living and inflation and those things. It's like less than 10%.
Yeah.
So do you feel like it's more important to stay on that? Because I used to never raise my rents if, if my tenant was good.
Yeah, I think, again, I am not personally a big fan of having rents right at market. I like to have them just a little bit below market, and in the same breath, along with a good tenant.
Right.
If those two have to go hand in hand.
Yep.
But I do think it's important with the caps right now. It is hard to play catch up.
Yep.
So if you have a tenant that's been there a long time, catching them up all at once is going to be somewhat impossible.
Right.
But the rent increases are somewhat generous. I mean, a 10% increase that's a pretty big increase.
Yeah.
And so I typically, as far as increases go, like to do smaller, more frequent increases versus a boom, one big chunk.
Do like a 5% and then 6 months later do a 5%, just hypothetically.
Exactly.
Got
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
And that's probably easier for those people to leverage and budget and go through that part too, right?
Yeah. And if you look at where the law originated from, why did they institute rent caps, right?
They didn't want the really big chunks.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. So what's the spirit of the law?
Yep.
Is they want it to be fair for the tenant in that they don't get hit with a $300, $400, $500 a month increase all at once. Because if you're making $20 an hour or whatever working at Amazon, I mean, that's a lot of money.
And rents are expensive though.
Rents are very expensive.
It's really interesting to me. We just sold a house in Salem, $510,000. Our buyer bought it, pure investor buyer. And, she'd asked us kind of, what did we think it would rent for? And obviously I'm not a property manager, but I gave her some off the record kind of opinions. And she rented it for $3,200.
Yeah.
And it's a nice house, Brian, but it's not a nice house, Brian. It's just an okay house.
Yeah.
And so she has a good ROI on that.
Yep.
And, her money went a little bit farther. She was looking kind of tired, Washington County, and then she just couldn't find anything she really liked. And this got her more house for her money in Salem, and the rents I thought were going to be remarkably less, and they're not really remarkably less.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's supply and demand. I mean, you're seeing the same thing on the sales side.
Of course.
In that there's just not as many homes out there available for people to buy. And so some that are moving here are opting to rent for a little while before they buy.
Yep.
Or they're stuck in that rental cycle where unfortunately they can't save up enough.
Well, and you think about that on the lending side, right? Like we're certainly, as rates have gone up, we're talking a lot to our team that there are people who were buyers in November who are not buyers today.
Yep.
Because they were just barely buyers.
Yep.
They just barely had enough cash. And since prices have gone up and rates have gone up, the math just doesn't work for them anymore.
Yeah, it's a tough time to be a first-time buyer.
Yeah.
But I think if they are willing to hang in there a little bit, there are, and if they're willing to maybe be a landlord a little bit as well.
Well, there's some good opportunities, right?
Maybe an ADU.
Yep.
Where you find a home that's got a little extra land or a detached garage and create an extra living space.
Yep.
And then rent that out nightly or monthly.
Yep.
That could help with their overall monthly housing expense.
Even if it doesn't help on their qualification, it would help on their budgeting.
Exactly.
Once they have it in place and once they do it.
For ADUs, but if they were to buy an owner-occupied 2 to 4-plex, there's some great programs out there for pretty low down payment, and you can use the rental income from those other units for qualifying.
Got it. So if I have a first-time buyer or second-time buyer, and they bought a triplex, the 2 rents from the other units count towards their income for the whole purchase?
A percentage of it.
Okay.
Yeah, percentage of the rents. It depends if it's conventional program or FHA.
Okay.
On the percentage, yeah.
Got it. And how long do they have to own or occupy that? Is it a year, 2 years?
For 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, granted it still might be like apartment living for them for a while.
It might feel not as house-like, right? Because it's a triplex or a fourplex.
American dream white picket fence or whatever vision is of a home. But long term, it's a great way to get into an investment property at a low rate for a relatively low down payment.
I have a great client who now no longer works for Intel and now is retired and lives in England and is probably 35. But he bought, I think, 6 from me in a row where he did 1 year. And he did like VA, and then he did FHA, then he did like a 3% down conventional.
Smart.
Like very super smart. And he was a single guy and he didn't mind that like apartment type living. And he didn't have somebody else saying like, no, this, I want that yard and pretty things.
Right.
He was okay moving around every year and a half, 2 years. And so there can be a really good opportunity for that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I think if you can take on as much mortgage debt as you can when you're young, that is paid for by somebody else.
Right.
Your 20-year down the road self will be very happy with you.
Yeah. It's that, like, that's part of building wealth, right, that we talk about. It's like doing things today that will feel good in 20 years.
Yes.
Not doing things today that will just feel good today.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So let's take the true just investor. Like, I just sold that Fourplex in Oregon City. They were a true investor buying their first investment property. What kind of cash down does someone need to like go out and buy a Fourplex or go out and buy a duplex as an investor?
Yeah, so the down payment varies depending on the property type. And if I talk about specific down payments, it's technically a trigger term.
Got it.
You've got to disclose APR and things like that.
But not like 2% down, right? You're going to have more down.
Absolutely. So if it's an investment property, it's considerably more down payment than a home that you're going to live in.
Got it.
But with that said, there's different options where you can get in a little bit lower down payment that maybe people might not be aware of. For instance, on a single family home, that is your lowest down payment option.
Okay.
For investment property.
Compared to like a duplex or a Fourplex.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. For straight investment.
Yep.
In the lending world, if it's a single family home with an ADU, that's still a single family home.
Got it.
So
even though there are 2 rental areas.
Correct.
Okay.
So you can get basically a 2-unit rental property, but it follows single family guidelines.
Okay.
We can't use the rents from the ADU to help qualify, just the main home.
Got it.
But it can be a great way to go.
Right. I remember talking to you years and years ago, and you had mentioned something about cash out refinance on a rental property.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we can do that? Like, sometimes you just don't know that stuff, right? Like,
oh, it's crazy.
And we have equity tied up in our rental properties.
Yep.
We used to say we would own it long enough that we could sell it and buy 2.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we would grow it, and we'd sell it and we'd buy 2. Now we're kind of to the part where like I have one that if it vacated, I would definitely sell it.
Yeah.
I have no emotional attachment to it. Yeah. Although now I'm kind of rethinking it because it's one of my only 1 levels.
Sure.
So now I'm like, oh, maybe Brian thinks I should keep that one.
Hold on a single level. That's my own advice.
But like it's in Cedar Hills. It hasn't really appreciated as well as all the rest of our properties.
Sure.
It's a good basic little rental. It is a little under rented, so I just gave those tenants notice, a 94-day notice or whatever to raise their rent because they've been in it like 5 years and I've never raised their rent. So I did just jump them up a little bit. Secretly kind of hoping if they gave their notice, I'm okay with that because then I could sell it. But now I like the properties we own. Overall, we like the properties we own. I don't really want to sell them anymore. So it's that leveraging of, do I pull equity out of them? Do I just save up and cash flow into the next one, right? Like that's the balance as we go through and we do these things.
Yep. And so in the lending world, we've been spoiled with very low rates for the last couple of years. Rates have come up a little bit. Still overall pretty good if you look at a historical perspective.
Absolutely.
And there are options for investment property second mortgages.
Okay.
So primarily for single family and duplexes.
Okay.
Don't have much in the 3 to 4plex world.
Got it.
But you can go to a pretty high loan to value, and you can use that. You can leave your low interest rate first mortgage.
I was going to say that's what I was thinking because all our rentals have really great low interest rates.
Yep. Take out a second mortgage and use that to buy your next rental property, do improvements.
Yep.
Build an ADU. Add a tough shed in the back to increase your rents.
Yep.
All that stuff. So.
Yeah, one of our properties, the best use of the land is a fourplex.
Yeah.
So at some point, I need to tear down my single family house and put a fourplex there because it's zoned for it. It's on Belmont and 22nd, so like the neighborhood does it.
Awesome.
Right? Like, so we're just kind of loving that house along because I don't want to do any big improvements to it.
Yeah.
but I also don't really have the cash today to like build a fourplex.
Yeah.
So it's that balance.
Depending on the construction too, there's options where you could move the home too.
Yeah?
You know, depending on how it's built.
Right.
You know, is it brick exterior?
I don't know if it's nice
regular?
enough to move.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can move it.
In this market, it's crazy, you know, where you find a lot and, you know, maybe you move the home and you have another rental and then build on what you got.
And maybe, you know, even because we could do a fourplex or we could do an ADU, like there's just options, right? It is nice when that property has something else that you could do with it, right? There's some additional potential that you could do it down the road.
Yep.
Do you have any red flags on investment property? Like, I'll give you my red flag. I like purpose built. I don't like the old house that was turned into 4 units. Like Charles and I for a while owned a beautiful triplex on Northrop. But like, I know my electrical bill didn't only serve my unit and like they were a little intermixed. So I'm a big believer on the multifamily and purpose built.
I 100% agree with you. One of my first investment properties was in North Portland. And it was this big old house that was converted to 3 units.
Yep.
And bought it on a contract, and that was going to be the next Carlton Sheets. If you remember that guy, he's dating myself a little bit, but I 100% agree with you. Purpose built. You want to make sure, check the permit history, you know, all the normal things that you do on a regular purchase. If it's an older property, look for underground oil tanks.
Right.
Radon gas,
all the same red flag,
all that stuff.
Due diligence that you do on a house.
Absolutely. And one of the litmus tests for me is, would I live there? I mean, it might not be my first choice.
Totally, no, that's exactly what Charles and I look at. Yep.
Is it a neighborhood where I would live?
Yep.
Or would my kids live there?
Yep.
And that answer has to be yes.
Yeah. And it means you're buying a little nicer, right? Which in my experience means it might not cash flow quite as well.
Correct.
Because the slumlordy, disgusting, those tend to cash flow better, but you get more rental turnover. And since we self-manage, I don't want more rental turnover.
Yep.
And I, like, we look at appreciation, because for us, like you said, it's a long game.
Yep.
I'm not buying it to flip it. Now, that might be a different project. Like, I just bought a house in Tigard that our plan is to buy it and flip it.
Yeah.
But it's a long game. So it's like, what's that going to appreciate over time? What's that going to be worth over time?
Yep.
And then how can you launch it in? You know, like our Hood River house is the favorite house I own. Like, I love that house.
Yeah.
We will
Great town.
Great town. We'll probably never sell it. It's zone commercial, so we can do short-term rentals and not be limited by Hood River's rules. But like, we were able to buy that because in 1998, I bought a manufactured home on a piece of land, and I had it as a rental for like, I don't know, 14 years. And then when I sold it, we had enough money to buy that house,
roll it over.
right?
Yep.
And so like, it wasn't like this little stupid trailer in Wallport, Oregon. Wasn't particularly my best investment ever, but it's what I could afford at the time. It's the first house I ever bought. So I bought my investment property before I ever bought a primary residence. And it let me do it, right? Like, it let me launch to something that I really wanted to own.
Yep, absolutely. And you can use it as a strategy for, again, I'm not a tax advisor or financial planner, but
it's the world we live in.
The home I live in now, I had an investment property, and I did a 1031 exchange into a home that eventually I was going to live in. And so I rolled it over, had to rent it out for a period of time. But now I live there as my residence.
It's a good way to get out of that 1031 chain, right? Like, it can stop the 1031 because now you're living in as a primary residence.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet, but we're thinking about that, like, as you look forward of that downsizer retirement house, what would that maybe look like? And although I say I would live in Maui rentals, there's only one I would actually live in. I mean, you know, I would.
It's a plan B or C, you know. Probably, but you know, you want to. You know, like in Portland, for the city of Portland, obviously you're familiar with Portland maps. You can look up crime statistics, school information.
Demographic, all the stuff on there to give you a good idea.
Fantastic tool.
Well, and it is, when you have properties that are a little under market, and when you have properties that are a little nicer, then you also have that longevity of tenants, right? And that's something I see on the buying side when I work with my buyers. A lot of the multifamily properties have a lot of deferred maintenance. People have been ignoring them. They haven't been, like, they've been thinking about them as part of their portfolio, but they haven't been taking care of them as part of their portfolio. And it's hard sometimes to find It's a numbers game because sometimes those will look really good as
Yep.
far as a cap rate and the return on investment,
Yep.
but it looks really good because they haven't been painting it, or they haven't been putting new furnaces
Yep.
in, or they haven't been doing any maintenance, right?
And all that is expensive these
Right.
days. I mean, to get an electrician out or a
Yep.
plumber or even handyman
Yep.
or women, handymen or women, are very expensive.
Yep.
And so that's something to consider when you're looking at that, property with a lot of deferred maintenance is, I personally, deferred maintenance drives me crazy. So
your properties are in good shape.
yeah, and some of them it's taken me longer, it's a process
Yep.
in some.
Yep.
But, and as I get a little bit older, I'm slowing down a little bit. But I used to be able to repaint a 2-bedroom unit myself in a weekend.
Yeah.
I was a weekend warrior.
Yep.
I just get the
We do-
paint
yep, we
and
do it. It
rollers,
takes-
put on some good music, and
Charles won't let me paint.
away. Yeah.
I'm a really bad painter, Brian.
I used to be neat. I used to be a lot neater, but as I get older, I'm a little sloppier.
We
but,
painted Hood River at the
yeah,
beginning of the pandemic,
Yeah.
and Charles's main comment was, "Next pandemic, can we please not paint anything?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "That's fair. Next
Yeah.
pandemic, we don't."
Yeah.
But March 2020, we didn't know if real estate was going to tank or not.
Right.
We had a short-term rental that we couldn't short-term rental anymore.
It was very scary for rental property too, because
Totally.
of the eviction moratorium and all that stuff as well.
How did your renters do? Did you have people not pay and take advantage of it?
So I'm kind of in a unique situation because all the properties I personally own, I've got a relationship with my tenants,
Right.
Because I self-manage, and then for our management company, we're not a very large management company. It's just my brother and I,
Yep.
and we also have a good relationship with those tenants, and so we. Again, we're under market a little bit,
Yep.
which helps during rough times
Yep.
because people are looking out there about what are my other options.
Right.
And I'm sitting pretty good. So I think that helped. And then we also worked with our tenants very closely. And we have a lot of waitresses, bartenders, people in the service industry.
Right, people who are really hurt
that were
by it.
impacted. And to get back to your question, no. I didn't have anybody that skipped out or whatever. Everybody paid up. Some of them it took a little bit of time, but everybody paid up. We didn't have to do any evictions. Everybody stayed in place,
Yep.
and we got through it together. We didn't raise rents,
Right. Neither did we,
For
of course. Yep.
year and a half, 2 years.
Yep.
But we made it through whole, which I count as a win.
It was one of our, we're a little behind on our rents on the amounts because
Yeah.
I was supposed to raise it in January 2020. I never got around to it.
Yeah.
Then March happened.
Right.
And so then I'm like, oh, and I was already probably behind in January.
Yeah.
I hadn't done it in a while. But same thing, we're all about communication. And so, I tell my renters, I don't just magically own property and am magically wealthy.
Yeah.
I take your rent and I pay my mortgage.
Yep.
And most of the time, your rent doesn't even quite cover my mortgage.
Yep.
So communicate if you're not going to do it, if you're going to be late.
Yes.
If if there's something I'm happy to give you grace about it.
Yep.
We had one of our tenants in one of our properties reached out, and they were same idea, service industry, esthetician, bartender. And she's like, Jenny, can you give us a deal on our rent? Can you waive our rent? Mm-hmm. Some of our friends are having their rent waived.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm like, Carrie, I'm so sorry. I would love to be able to do it.
Yep.
But at the time, I didn't know what real estate was going to do. I didn't know where we were at. I have mortgages. And I'm like, I just can't. And she's like, it's okay. My mom will pay. I'm like,
Right.
Oh, well, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. But,
Sure.
but I do, looking forward, I'd love to be in a position next pandemic
Yeah.
that I can be like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it's harder, especially with how all the eviction moratorium stuff worked. Legally that rent wasn't waived. Legally that rent was due at the end of it.
Right.
Well, people can't, or it's much harder for people to not pay rent for 6 months and then pay it all in one chunk.
Right.
Because you know how it goes. Most people aren't just saving that money every month.
Right.
They're
You have to
spending
live.
it. Yep, you're
Yeah.
living on it.
Yep.
And so that's also part of the balance is it's easier if you just keep paying it every month
Yeah.
than owing it at the end of the day.
Yeah. At least something every month.
Totally.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the investment multifamily market be crazy from the financial side? Are you busy? Are there lots of loans in that world?
Yeah, it's pretty busy. A lot of we also do lending for small apartment buildings.
Yeah.
So 5 units and up.
Right, so 5 units and up are commercial.
Commercial.
4 units and down are residential. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the commercial world, the nice thing about that is it's all based on the property's cash flow. So they're the value of the property is, it could get bid up, but typically it's an investment and they want a return on their money.
Yep. Yeah, it's all about the ROI, the cap rate on that.
Absolutely.
And I
don't know if you're seeing it, but it seems like in the single family world, it's very much market driven.
Emotion, no data. We're all emotion, no data, right? Yep.
Duplexes, I think you're a little bit of a mix. Is that what you're seeing maybe?
Well, if I can...
Some investor, some owner occupant?
If I can get an owner occupant to buy it, they'll pay way more than the investor will pay.
Yep.
So on the listing agent side, if I can target to an owner occupied, I'll make my seller more money. But then it has to have one unit vacant or vacantable.
Yep.
It has to have it has to feel a little residential. But I can make my sellers more money if we can sell that duplex to an owner occupied person.
Yes.
But we do still have investors looking at them as well.
Yep. And I think as you get into maybe triplex, fourplex,
that's more investor. Yep, I agree.
More investor.
And I think those feel more apartment-y and less housey.
Yep.
Right? And so it's a little harder for those first, second time buyers to be like, do I really want to live here? Is this really where what I'm going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it is interesting because that recent property we worked on together, that buyer was very conservative in his numbers. And he kept saying things to me like, well, those numbers don't work. Those numbers don't work. And I'm like, they don't work for you, but they work for somebody else because the properties are selling, right? And so that's a balance because it is a personal, and because he was so analytical, it's hard sometimes to trust that maybe they don't work exactly like you want them to work today, but in 3 years, you're going to be freaking happy.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
It's a longer game than that.
Yeah, and then, there's huge tax benefits as far as depreciation and write-offs and things like that too.
Yep.
As well as principal reduction over time.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways that they can generate,
Right. It's not just the income.
It's not just the cash.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I will tell my investors that you have to have enough money in your budget, in your life, in your world, that if the furnace dies, you can afford to fix it.
Yeah.
Right? That stuff happens.
Yep.
And Sunday night at 6:00, my tenant calls me on my Southeast Portland home and the refrigerator died. And I'm like, that's a 2-year-old fridge. They're we don't know what happened. Can you get us a new one tonight? No. I can't get you a new refrigerator.
Right.
Sunday night at 6:00
right.
with pandemic shortages everywhere anyways.
Right.
But you have to be willing to take that hassle on. Or if you're not going to self-manage, that expense on, right?
Yep.
Because you're still going to pay for it. You're just going to pay somebody else to deal with the hassle.
Absolutely.
And so if you're really tight, I don't think if you're really tight on a budget, investments in real estate might not, because that might not be the best return, right? Because the hassle and the cash flow of somebody might not pay. In 2018, we had a tenant not pay us for 6 months and 5 days. Total con. We got taken. I'm a much smarter investor now than I was. I learned a lot from her. Staged a heart attack at the eviction hearing. Every single craziest thing you've ever heard happened. She was a pro. I give her, in hindsight, I give her credit. In reality, I had a mortgage still for 6 months.
Yeah.
I
Insurance,
not only
taxes.
had to pay all those expenses of the property, I ended up with a $37,000 attorney fee.
Right.
And so I also learned the importance of having an attorney who really is just a landlord-tenant attorney.
Yes.
Not just a real estate attorney who also does landlord-tenant.
Yes.
I will never, that was horrible.
Yes.
But, we had to be able to, as a household, cash flow that. And it was hard, honestly. But, and in 23 years of owning rental property, okay, we're pretty lucky.
Right.
One bad, horrible experience.
Yep.
Now, I've had tenants trash things. I've had tenants who I used to give people permission to paint. And so I let these tenants in the Southeast Portland house paint it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just tell me the colors, I'll approve it. And they're like, sage green, da-da-da-da. And I went and walked through it. I'm like, this is not sage green. They're like, well, it looked good on that little piece of paper, Jenny.
Yeah.
So now nobody gets to paint anymore.
And then they get paint all over the trim.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. I made the same mistake early on.
You learn, right? You learn of I don't care how good of a painter you are, you can't paint. It's the color it is, and that's all it is.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. But I would say, if you are getting into a first time, investment property, and your budget is tight, I would recommend setting up a line of credit. You can do
that's a good idea.
HELOC against your home, or a personal line of credit. But just have, if your savings is a little bit tight, have that safety net
a cushion there.
Exactly. And also seriously consider hiring a licensed qualified property manager, because with your experience and your attorney's fees, the amount you pay for a property manager to make sure everything's on the up and up, check on the property.
Yeah, a property manager wouldn't have fallen for it.
Well, you can't. Who knows, right?
It's not a guarantee, but in this case,
but they would have.
They'd have had better.
Been on top of late payments, served the notices quicker, maybe.
Yep.
Been a little bit more by the book, a little bit more stern.
Yep.
With the tenant.
I'm a harder landlord now than I was before.
Yeah.
I used to be a little nicer, and now I'm like, sorry, that's how.
But
like,
with
that's
it being
how
a
it
personal
is.
business, you have to be a little bit nice. That's part of it. But you do have to follow the contract and be firm about certain things.
Yep. It's a business, right? Like it is a business. And we do a lot of coaching because we have a lot of people who buy their first house, think they're going to keep it as a rental. Now they're ready to buy their second house. And then we do a lot of analysis of like, okay, does that make sense for you to keep it, right? How much equity do you have in it? Are you ready for that hassle? We talk a lot about like, is owning real estate part of your overall financial wealth building goal? Like, is it something you've always pictured and you've always had? For us, like, we're heavy in real estate, right? It's what we do, it's what we like. Luckily, I have a financial planner who gets me and understands me, right?
Sure.
But like, it's a vast majority of our portfolios in real estate. But I like being able to touch it and see it and feel it. I like having it here. I mean, with the exception of the Oklahoma, which was kind of a weird exception. We looked last summer. We thought we were going to do a 1031, and we thought we were going to have to buy something else with it. We didn't think we were going to build 1031 into our commercial building that we bought. And so we spent a couple of weeks scrambling what we were going to buy, and we looked a bunch in like Oklahoma and Arkansas and all these places where you can buy like a $90,000 house or a $120,000 house and rent it for like $1,900, like huge cash flow. But I remember talking to the agent there on the phone, and he's like, okay, I have different tiers. He's like, I have A, B, C. He's like, is it important to you to go to your rental property without a gun? I'm like, yeah, that's important to me. He's like, okay, well, then you can't be an A or B tier. You got to go to C or D tier.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I'm out. Like, I don't want, even though the cash flow is there, I don't, that's not, like, that doesn't fit in what I picture in my world, right? I like that if I'm driving around showing property, I might purposely drive through Cedar Hills and look at that house.
Right.
I like to make sure it's still standing. I like to make sure that there's nothing weird going on. Because we self-manage, our landscaper does landscaping. I usually include landscaping in my rentals because then at least I know that my house doesn't look like the shitty house that nobody else wants to see.
Rental in the block.
And so my landlord tells me secrets. And he's like, hey, is that one supposed to have a dog? Hey, did you know they're smoking in there? Or they're smoking in the back porch? Like he'll do that stuff, right? And he'll also help me with some of that maintenance stuff. He'll be like, hey, you really need to clean the gutters and have moss out on that house. And I'm like, great, do it. So that, if you're going to self-manage, having a partner in that a little bit is nice. And so we don't, like, sometimes landscaping is actually pretty expensive. Like, sometimes I really paid like $250 this month for landscaping on that property. But it also has some return, and I get to know what is going on there, right?
Boots on the ground. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's good to have somebody with an eye on the property like that, for sure. Yeah.
Especially if you don't have the ability to, like, go through it. Do you walk your properties every year? Like, what's your schedule on that? How do you know it's okay?
Yeah, so for the properties that I own, I typically do at least, I'm in there at least once a year. A lot of times more often.
And that's the advantage, right? If they need a light bulb changed? Because, like, you can go do it as a nice thing. But you also get to see the house. What's going on in there? How are they feeling?
But there's different maintenance things, like you want to make sure, we test smoke detectors yearly for properties we manage as well. And just do a regular walkthrough. And then on the management side too, we also do small handyman type work. We're allowed to under that license. And so depending on the repair, we might be in there, doing a little handyman fix. At the same time, look around. Right,
because you're there.
Make sure everything's good.
Talking about the property management side for a minute. So lots of our investors don't want to self-manage. They don't have the hassle, they don't have the time. Everybody's at into their capacity right now in life anyways. So if I came to you and said, hey, I have this single family house, I want you to manage it for me. Can you give me just some overall rule of thumbs of like fees, costs? Is it a cost to place it and then a percentage after that? How does it just work on the management side if we hired you professionally that way?
Yeah. Do you want specifics or just general?
Specific or range? I mean, I don't care.
Yeah.
Just give them an idea because what we do when we work with these investors is, okay, here's how much it costs. Here's how much your mortgage is going to be. Here's your cash out of pocket. And then on the flip side, here's your income. But what other expenses do you have outside of that, right? And if they hire a property manager, that's something they have to think about.
Yeah. So there's a monthly management fee.
Okay.
Which varies depending on depends on a lot of different factors. But it depends on, does that owner have multiple properties that we're going to manage? Or is it just a one-off?
And I would assume it's a discount if there's multiple than if there's one. Okay.
Yeah. So that fee ranges anywhere from a low of 6% to 8%.
Got it.
With our company.
Good. So that gives people an idea.
And it's of the gross rents that are collected. And then there's also a leasing fee if the property is vacant, for us to screen and find a tenant and place them in the property. And then we also, as far as maintenance goes, the owners can use anybody they want. We have, I think, very, very affordable maintenance is in an hourly rate. We typically charge $45 an hour.
That's very affordable.
Which is very affordable.
But we can only do it. My pretty not so good handyman, $65.
Right.
So.
And that's only if we don't do electrical, we don't do plumbing, we don't do.
It's true handyman stuff.
Exactly. And the advantage there is that we can pick up a little extra revenue for our company. You get boots on the ground, looking at your property. We're very conscientious about. During the pandemic, we were masked up and
you can control that because it was all part of what you're doing.
And we can get out there quickly. So normally we're out there within 24 hours. To do the little repair, and that from a service, because at the end of the day, it's a service industry. Right. Our clients are the owners, and we look at our tenants also as clients as well. And so when they put in a maintenance request, for example, like a fridge or something like that, we try and get that turned around very, very quickly. To keep them happy. Well,
and it's inconvenient. I mean, not having a refrigerator is a big deal, right? So you do have to do it as quick as you possibly can. It's just sometimes that's not Sunday night at 7 o'clock.
And things like, we have portable electric heaters. We have portable AC units. And so if somebody's furnace goes out in the middle of winter, boom, we're over there same day with some electric heaters to where it's not going to be toasty warm, but it's not going to be freezing cold.
It's going to at least mitigate that a little bit.
Until the HVAC guy comes out to fix the furnace.
It's interesting, for our short-term rental, I mean, pre-COVID, we paid about $10,000 a year to that. Now, maybe that was a difference between rental and our mortgage. Maybe that was because the furnace died. Maybe that was just whatever it was. We use it, right? So we don't rent it all the time because we go there. So we did an analysis, 2019, for the previous 4 years, we'd covered $10,000 a year. Now, we've made way more than that because the appreciation has just been spectacular. But cash flow out of our pocket. So as a family, we looked at that and we thought we had a conversation with the three of us of do we want to keep this property as a short-term rental? Are we okay covering this difference? And we said yes. Well, then the pandemic hit, and now it's a freaking cash cow. And I want to go there more than we do, but I can rent it for $450 a night.
Wow.
Well, I can go a lot of places for $450 a night. Right? And we love it. And March 2020, we spent 3 months there because it was pandemic. Ryan was schooling at home. We were doing tile and paint and carpet and all this stuff, new furniture. So we also, for a while, it wasn't our happy place anymore. We were all a little tired of Hood River. Now we're back to liking it again. But it's amazing how much cash flow that is. But it's hard when we have clients who say, hey, I want to buy a short-term rental, because those rules and regulations are a moving target. Everything's changing. When we bought that in 2013, there were no rules and regulations in Hood River. Fast forward, 5 years ago, they put in a law that sunsetted short-term rentals in Hood River. So there's 2 more summers of short-term rentals in Hood River, unless your property is zoned commercial. Brian, our property was freaking zoned commercial. Just dumb luck. Right? Now, we couldn't afford to keep that property as a long-term rental because long-term rentals in Hood River don't actually, they aren't very high, right? Which is the goal of the law, and I understand the intentionality around they are trying to bring property values down so people who work in Hood River can afford to buy in Hood River.
People work in the service industry have to have a place to live, right? Same thing with Bend.
But if you don't have any place for people to come and stay, who's going to go to the service industry places? So, it's a funny line, right? And we will own that property forever and ever and ever and ever and ever because it's zoned commercial.
Sure.
And at some point, we'd like to use it more. And at some point, we'll probably get to the place where we buy a different property in Hood River that we get to go to and use and don't short-term rental. I told Charles that I really wanted to block out a year and just have it for a year where it's just ours. And so he's like, well, can we start with a month? Like, oh, we should probably start with a month. So we blocked out February 2022. We were not going to rent it. We were going to have February 2022 be ours.
Nice.
Do you know
How'd
how
that work out?
Not at all.
You know what? You're too busy here with real estate, sure.
And so we spent one weekend in February. Now, luckily, we figured out it wasn't going to work out, and we have lots of family stuff going on and things that we didn't know when we made these grand plans, and we just put it back on the rental market, and it rented all of February. And historically, it would rent like the weekends maybe, and maybe this, but winter was kind of our slow month. It's a little bit close to Mount Hood, but not really. And so it's interesting because it's just like, now it's been our cash cow. So that stuff ebbs and flows, but it's hard for the buyer who's saying, where are you seeing that you could do a short-term rental as just a standalone thing? Because not Portland, not Hood River.
And I have not dived too deep into the short-term rental. I haven't done it personally.
Yep.
But I've researched it a bit, and there's all sorts of different. You can go with the nightly rental situation, which is what you're doing in Hood River.
But you can also do 30 days, and then that's not short-term anymore.
Exactly.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the traveling nurses and the people.
And then also for insurance companies. So say you have a home, right, and say a pipe breaks.
Yep.
And the insurance company has to find a place for you to live for 4 months or whatever while they're doing the repair work. Yep. Well, there's the Residence Inn and places like that.
But that's not the same as a house.
If you've got 2 kids and dogs and cats, they're looking for, in a lot of cases, a furnished single-family home for a multi-month rental. And the rate that you get is pretty attractive.
So on the short-term rental side, we bought this house on Southwest Regal in Portland, Washington County. So not City of Portland regulations, it's Washington County.
I've got one, same thing.
And we looked at it, and I did some math, and I went on, VRBO and Airbnb and tried to figure out, what did I think it would rent for and how much did I think it would rent. And I'm kind of just guessing because you don't really know. And I did the math that was going to be about $2,900 a month. It's a 1,400 square foot house, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, really amazing street, a really nice pocket.
Sure.
But I just put it on the long-term rental market for $2,900, thinking can I possibly get $2,900? I mean, that seems like a lot for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house. Rent it easy.
Yep.
So then I'm like, okay, no hassle, right? Because the short-term rental
a lot of hassle.
Has hassle.
And if you're gonna hire a management company for short-term rental, the management fees are a lot more.
They take a lot more. Yep. But we self-manage Hood River.
Yeah.
Same thing, only barely. We're almost at cusp.
Sure.
Most of the time it's great. Sometimes we accidentally double book.
Right.
Sometimes Airbnb and VRBO don't talk to each other quite right.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we get this call and then we're scrambling and figuring it out. And luckily we have a really good relationship with another property manager who has most of the other townhouses in Hood River.
Nice.
Where sometimes she has something empty and I could be like, oh, you can just move to unit 5.
Yeah, perfect.
But that's a problem, right? But so we thought that would be a good option. And now maybe if we did it and I looked at the numbers, maybe it would make more sense, but you have to also furnish it.
Right.
And that furnishing, it's a lot.
Yep.
When we bought Hood River, I furnished it with everything out of my house. And then I went and bought new furniture for my house.
Yeah.
So that was a way of updating things, right?
Yeah.
But we do find that we have to have it looking nice. People pay more and choose our rental because they do want it to look nice. They want it to feel nice. They want it to feel good.
They don't want it to be staying in a hotel or something like that. They want it to be very homey.
And it can't be janky and crappy and, all those things. Yeah. So it is interesting. No, the short term isn't interesting, but the 30 days is a good workaround because 30 days you can just do anywhere.
Absolutely. Yep.
Brian, thanks so much for coming. Jenny Turner with Lovejoy Real Estate. If you want more information on buying investment property, financing investment property, you can reach me at 503-312-4642 or Jenny@lovejoyrealestate.com.
Jenny, thank you for having me. My name is Brian Haveman. I'm with Summit Mortgage and also Landmark Property Management. Best way to reach me is my cell at 503-490-5137.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.